I'm 80 years old, and only now do I understand why letting go was harder than losing. I thought losing was the worst thing that could happen to a person. Death, separation, endings you can't argue with. But those came later. I resisted it with everything I had. Jen, I'm not saying this to sound wise. At my age, wisdom feels like a poor substitute for time. I'm saying it because there's not much of me left that hasn't already happened, and this is one of the few truths that still feels unfinished. Most days are quiet now, not the kind of quiet people romanticize, just absence. The chair across from me stays empty. The phone rarely rings. I know how the light moves through this room at every hour because I'm usually here to see it. Beyond, when you reach this age, you stop pretending there's more ahead than behind. You don't panic about it. You just stop lying to yourself. I spent most of my life thinking, holding on was strength. Letting go felt like failure, like giving up before the fight was finished. I didn't realize that holding on too long can quietly take more from you than loss ever does. Bamblet, when I was younger, I didn't see it that way. None of us do. Manda, I grew up during a time when you were taught to endure. You stayed, you made do. You didn't abandon people or ideas just because they hurt you. Letting go sounded selfish, weak, dangerous. Boom, so I learned early how to keep my hands clenched. And in my 20s, I met the woman who would shape most of my life. She was warm in a way I wasn't. She spoke easily. She expected closeness. I loved her for that, and I feared it too. We built a life together slowly. Jobs, a home, children, the usual markers people point to and say, that's a good life. And it was, in many ways, Mom, but even then, there were things I should have released. Expectations. Old resentments. The idea that things had to stay the same to be safe. I didn't let go of those. I kept them neatly packed inside me as the years went on. The cost didn't come loudly. It never does. It arrived quietly, through tension I ignored and conversations I postponed. And there were moments when it was clear something needed to change. A job that drained me more each year. A version of myself I'd outgrown. Small conflicts in my marriage that didn't heal because I insisted on being right instead of being open. Each time I chose to hold on to the familiar, to the role I knew how to play. And I told myself this was loyalty, responsibility, commitment. I didn't know it was fear dressed up as virtue. Letting go felt like stepping into air without knowing if there was ground underneath. Losing, at least, had an ending. Letting go felt endless in my 40s and 50s. Life started shedding things, whether I was ready or not. Children grew up and left. Friends moved away or drifted off. My body changed in ways I couldn't argue with. Each loss hurt, but I could name it. I could mourn it. Letting go was different. It asked me to release things that were still technically there. Beliefs, roles, old versions of love. That was harder. I clung to how things used to be, how I thought they should remain. I didn't see how much tension that created. My wife would say, you don't have to carry everything. I didn't understand what she meant. I thought carrying things was my job. And the slow cost of this showed up in distance, emotional distance, not coldness. Exactly. Just a sense that we were walking side by side instead of together. I didn't let go of pride when I should have. Didn't let go of control. Didn't let go of the idea that endurance alone was enough to sustain love. Years passed like that, not unhappy. Just tight. The turning point came later than it should have and sooner than I expected. My wife got sick. Not all at once. Just enough to change our days. Watching someone you love weaken does something to your sense of control. It strips it away. You realize how little of life actually responds to effort. She changed, softened, spoke more honestly. She wanted to talk about things we had avoided for years. I struggled with that, not because I didn't care, but because letting go of old defenses felt like admitting they had been unnecessary all along. One night, she said something I think about often. She said, "You don't have to hold on so hard anymore." Bemin, I didn't answer her. I didn't know how. She died holding my hand a few months later. That was losing. Clear. Final. Devastating, but defined. Letting go came after. Letting go of the routines we shared. Letting go of the idea that I could still explain myself to her someday. Letting go of the man I was when she was alive. That's when I understood the difference. Loss happens to you. Letting go is something you have to do yourself. And I resisted it, I kept her things longer than I should have. I replayed old arguments in my head as if resolution was still possible. I held on to guilt because releasing it felt like erasing her. What I didn't realize was that holding on was keeping me stuck in a life that no longer existed. Yeah, but bland, the house stayed the same, but everything inside it had changed. Friends encouraged me to move on. I hated that phrase. It sounded careless. But what they meant, I see now, was to loosen my grip. I couldn't. Pain letting go felt like another loss. Another death layered on top of the first glanced. It took years for me to understand that letting go wasn't about forgetting. It was about allowing space for what is, instead of fighting for what isn't. And by the time I reached my 80s, most of the big losses had already happened. Parents, friends, my wife, even my own physical strength. What remained was my relationship to those losses. I noticed how much energy I was spending resisting reality, holding on to grievances that had no audience anymore, to expectations no one else was aware of. That resistance made everything heavier. What can't be fixed now is not the losing. Death does what it does. What can't be fixed is how long I refuse to release the weight that came after. Manda, I can't go back and let go sooner. I can't tell my younger self that some things end, whether you're ready or not, and that clinging doesn't stop the ending. It only stretches the pain. These days I live more lightly, not because I'm happier, but because I'm tired of carrying what no longer belongs to me. I let memories come and go without arguing with them. I allow sadness without trying to justify it. I don't demand meaning from every ache. That's what letting go looks like now. It's quiet, unimpressive, human. Man, if you're listening to this, I don't want to tell you to let go of anything. You'll do that in your own time, or you won't. I only know what I wish I had understood. Letting go isn't betrayal, it isn't weakness, it isn't erasing love or effort or history. Plombiansons. It's acknowledging that some things have already changed and that refusing to accept that costs more than the change itself. I spent years afraid of losing. I didn't realize how much longer I'd suffer by refusing to release what was already gone. Now, at Basarloop, I don't have much left to lose. That makes letting go easier in some ways. There's less to protect, less to prove. I wake up, I sit with the day, I allow it to be what it is. Some days are heavy, some are gentle. None of them ask me to hold on the way I used to. And if this meant something to you, you don't have to act on it. Just notice where you're gripping life so tightly that it's hurting your hands. I'm Basarloop years old. I lost many things in my life, but it was letting go that taught me the most, even though I learned it far too late.